different types of structures. Is it going? I can't tell if it's going.
Yeah, it's recording.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So, what you're mentioning makes me think that, these etheric tsunamis, I think we're going to get into all sorts of nonlinear dynamic type situations. I think we're going to see economic ramifications. Obviously, we were just talking about health ones and some of the people that I care about who are struggling with health issues. I think that we are seeing political ramifications, and I think that there's an interaction. I mean, clearly there's an interaction between all the 5 phases of the Big G diagram. But I think that there is, and there's concordance there, by the way. The Big G diagram has the same layout as the South Pole of Jupiter had prior to November 2019, which people should refer to my new paper to see more information about that. I'll put it in the link in the description. But I think that the concordance between ether and the power of ether and the power of numbers is more than just a ether generating the numbers. I think that there is a super correlation there, and that I suspect will come into play partially because of the cryptocurrency thing, and also the logistics supply chain. Certainly, Aaron and I have been, as we've gone along together, working together, and therefore doing various kinds of researching. His interests are different. He thinks differently, but we have the same paradigm. And in which case, we've been able to parallel process with each other and come to some interesting kind of ideas or conclusions, however you want to say that. And the spacer, my receiving the spacer paradigm really interests me, because there's an intersection between STEM and strategy, resilience, and in the strategy and resilience, you find the sciences of operations research, and that's all going to connect to the logistics supply chain. So seeing all this logistics supply chain, I'm interested to know mathematically. And, I guess you guys are welcome to speculate about the mathematics. I think the audience would probably love to hear what the Dougherty set would say about the mathematics of the economy, the wave, and maybe how it affects the socio-political economic scene. But I just want to, I'm framing the conversation in that direction, like how the ether is affecting more than one thing and going everywhere. So take it away. I'm going to mute myself.
There's a random number generator that they watch when big events unfold, and people's desires and intentions change the actual random numbers being generated. They can actually skew the process of generating random numbers. And that is sort of like a group desire affecting some events. And I think that's being transmitted inside the Aether structure itself. So there's a sort of a hidden, unrealized communication mechanism between all the conscious beings that are affected by a set of events as a group. So the Earth, when they talk about the Earth being a living entity with a Gestalt memory and a Gaia environment, what they're really talking about is that the lives that are existing on the planet at any given point in time, that entire group creates a group result in terms of the environment we live in. So yeah, the way I think that communication is affected is definitely through the aethic structure itself. It's instantly transmitted, and it's recorded in the Aether structure, like in a manner very similar to the way water records what has affected it in the past. So it's a holographic style memory. In other words, it's like a hologram, but it's more than a hologram. So these
holofractal.
And these things are shared between us, and some of it is, the group desire of where we want to go, and the group desire we have in the world, there's two groups. There's one that wants to gain dictatorial control over everything they think they own, and there's the other group that are against that and are pushing for freedom and, you know, a better way of living. And at the moment, what we're seeing is quite a deliberate and large conflict occurring, and it's almost like it's all coming towards a culmination. It will resolve itself one way or the other. And this stuff
I
has
would
been...
say you're right on but the divide and conquer might be worse than that, and then that the freedom lovers are in the middle, and on the two ends you have moochers and controllers, and the moochers are more often than not apathetic about the controllers because the controllers feed them what they need, which is free and easy crap. And the controllers, they don't respect either the other group. They don't respect anybody. They don't even respect each other, let alone the rest of the group. They're sort of
themselves.
They're immature spiritually, mentally, emotionally. And so their desire, and then they sell it, but they know they've learned how to sell it. They've learned how to sell it by saying the words freedom, by saying for the good of mankind, by saying democracy. It's what Bain was mocking when he gave his speech out. His speech. He's like, "For you, the people," and obviously he's mocking the truth. So, in other words, they're basically terrorists because they traffic in the products of terror, which includes slavery, the human flesh industry, which people can look into that all they want, or I could help you. And then the moochers just seem to be growing, or they're willing to, and they're de-incentivizing at this point now. They're de-incentivizing people to leave the moochers and become free, and for more people who were free to become a moocher. And that we're seeing that, and less people willing to work, and they're obviously going to be lying about whether or not they have COVID, so whether or not they have to go to work. I mean, it's pretty bad. And so you have the two extremes, and then you have the people in the middle who are trying to make the world better. All right, continue.
Yeah. So what I think is happening is that these sides are reaching a crescendo. Something has got to give, because the circumstance we've got at the moment is destroying us. And it turns into a survival mechanism. And so they talk about, global resets in the form of the New World Order wants to have to give them complete control, or you get the religious versions of utopia. And the thing is that I don't think the universe works in either of those two ways. And the universe has a way of protecting its goals. And as a result, you will watch these events unfold as they have in the past and totally fail. Yes, a lot of people are going to get injured and killed and suffer what the Chinese curse is, the interesting life. But the thing is, it's not whether you survive or not, it's how you live, and whether you compromise your belief systems in the sense of a moral depravity, or whether you live a life that we call good and useful. And not all of us are going to be able to have a job. We're going to be denied the right to earn an income, but that doesn't mean that we suddenly have to stop contributing anything. And in fact, you'll find that people find value in what they add to circumstances, good or bad. And I think what we're seeing at the moment is this crescendo event between the people who want to control everything and dictate our lives 24/7 from those who are absolutely and totally opposed to it. And the ones who want to control everything need to look at history and understand the simple fact that every time this has been tried in the past, it's led to absolute total failure. All these systems of total control have never worked, and they never will work, because it's abhorrent to the nature of the universe. You can say it's against God's nature or whatever, but the simple fact is, look at the evidence. How many of these dictatorial systems have survived? How many of them are still going? How many of them are doomed to end? North Korea is a classic example, but it hasn't even been going as long as the Russian one that failed, and the Chinese one that's undergoing transformation now. Even in Cuba, we're starting to see that dictatorial system fall apart. And in places like Canada and the Western democracies, they're trying to impose this dictatorial system, and they're meeting resistance. But the question is that resistance strong enough to actually turf these guys out of power? You know, the electorate has the right to renew the political leadership. And if we don't do that, then we deserve what that's going to happen. But in Canada, Trudeau is obviously scared that he's going to be taken out the front and lynched, and he's reacting in accordance to that, as any political leader who thinks that their life's in danger because they know they're doing the wrong thing. You know, you've seen this throughout history, and we're just seeing it all unfold again now, and it seems to be worse than ever. But I don't think it matters what time you lived in the last 1,000 years or 2,000 years. It's always looked very bad, and when these events are unfolding. So I think their intensity is no different. The only difference right now is the technology we can employ to inflict damage upon everybody. And one of the things, you know, people will ask the question, do you believe in God and all the rest of it? Well, all I can remind people of is this. When you look at the Gospels, Jesus stated to his disciples that if this time was not cut short, this time of absolute warfare between good and evil, all life would be destroyed if it was not cut short. And the question we need to ask ourselves is, do we live in an age where we the human race, can destroy all life? And the simple answer appears to be yes. So yes, is this the time of culmination? Maybe. But nobody will know these events until after they've occurred.
And that's true. I mean, that is in Revelations that you know, it's going to happen in a time unlooked for. I would say that we should, in general, strive to be a little more uplifting for people, that we want them to know that there's something that they can do. I think that the best thing that they can do is to study the complete science. And the whole point of the extended part of the plasma electromagnetic cosmology is that this cosmology can then go into other areas and improve those situations. So improve your health, improve your diet, improve your home, improve your, you know, the feng shui, improve your wallet. And if that is true, which is obviously the conjecture of EPMC, is that not only because it's open source and all that, but that it's sort of my gift to mankind. It's like, hey, look, here's a cosmology that can go in and can inform you about your martial studies. It can inform you about your spiritual path. It can inform you. It can give you a peace of mind about what's happened to mankind in the past. You don't have to go around being afraid that the aliens are going to come back and exact revenge and enslave us to mine for gold. You know, there's all these ways that the cosmology can improve life. However, there is actual action that has to be taken. And not everybody's going to want to write papers or do what I do, or, you know, or can. I mean, few people are licensed to be acupuncturists. Few people feel like they can box. If I am taken by God, by the source, my hope is that there remains some records of what's happened to mankind in the past. We've made great strides already in EPMC and being able to bring together people from plasma, people from electric, people from magnetic, and just also diffusionists and catastrophists. And obviously geometers. So bringing these different disciplines together, we've been able to discern what it seems is like to have happened, which is the star bifurcated, and when it ripped apart, it showered mankind in energy, radiation, bolides, you know, and then there were rogue, you know, bodies on the move throughout the solar system, things being slung about, the exchange of moons, obviously, because some are in retrograde orbits like Triton. And these events changed mankind, and it fundamentally altered our symbology from a symbology of nature and hunting to therianthropes and disaster, and then later on we became warlike, starting 7,000 years ago, and getting really bad after 4,600 years ago, and there became the beginnings of the human flesh industry. Of course, back then it was all about ritual heart sacrifice, and which all had to do with Venus and the Medusa and all this stuff. Now it has become industrial, and I'm sorry to tell people, it's the abortion genocide is not about women's rights. It has nothing to do with women's rights. Women do not have a special right to take life. That this is a secret industry of organ and tissue harvesting. You can look it up. But this stuff is going around, and so all of this goes back to the Venus cataclysm. And then as far as men and all this warfare, this endless warfare, it goes back to when Mars swung close to the Earth, and we had 400 years of war in ancient China. Greece had a dark age. Obviously, we had the sacking of Troy, and following that period, we've never ever left that completely behind. And so our religions have also become they're more like to be corrupted. And if a person knows that and can utilize this cosmology to set themselves free of the negative aspects of their religion, I don't mean negative as in the yen pole, I mean truly false yen, then perhaps the conjecture of the Taoists is that you will be more safe in these times. It says specifically in the Neiya that those who have the De, which involves getting the Qi in the chest, this is a text that's older than the Tao Te Ching, that they will be immune from the heavenly disasters and the evil people's weapons and the animals' claws. Now that's a conjecture in there. We don't have any data on it though, because how has it been tested? I don't see any evidence that there's ever been a systematic scientific method applied to the study of the changes or the study of there's been plenty of work in but it's mostly been in the art of war, by and large. There's also been obviously a lot of work in understanding position in sports because it enhances a team's likelihood of success. Congrats to Tom Brady for becoming the greatest of all time quarterback. He is obviously a person to understand position. But position is mostly understood in terms of finance, war, and sports. It's rarely understood in people's individual lives. They often come to me with negative positions, and they're hoping for succor and for compassion and a way out. And the escape is to fix the position. But teaching that science has been very difficult. So there's a lot of room in the extended cosmology to go into these new areas. And I think that the ether physics, if we were metaphysics, we might have to say at this point, because we don't really have an anatomy yet for the ether. We have good speculations, but we don't have a laboratory slicing or a microscopy of the ether. So, we have my data ether work, which is a little like hardish because it gets into like numbers that we can track, but we don't have a whole lot. But my conjecture would be that this ether will go into everything. If people can understand position and understand their relationship to the ether, it might actually improve not only their life, but their how's the I Ching put it, their becoming blameless with heaven and improving their actual position with heaven itself, because heaven would be something that's part of the power of the ether. So anyways, that's my speculation. That's the direction that a lot of my work is heading anyways, whimsically.
In terms of the evidence, it's a case of, are we accepting what we experience and accepting it as evidence? And I know that this sounds a little bit strange, but when you're right with heaven, when you're right with God, when you're living the life that was intended, you will find around you the evil consequence of the environment doesn't seem to affect you. So although, there's in our lives, we see people with disease and we care for them and all the rest of it. For those that are right with the true nature of creation and with God or with Chi or with whatever, you will find for those people the evil events around them happen, but they're not affected by them. Which is, what you were describing with the chi. If the chi's in the heart, you seem to be immune or above or separated from all the horrible things that are going on. And I think that is definitely true of people who are humble before God or the universe and are in step with it. If you're trying to rule the universe, you're going to discover all sorts of problems. But if you're just accepting that you have a role to play and you try to do the correct thing and pursue the truth, you will find that a lot of the gumph and evil that's going around you doesn't impact you. And I've just seen a post here in the chat screen where the Royal Canadian Police have seized all the fuel from the people that are protesting in an attempt to, cause trouble. Now, that raid by the police to seize the fuel is actually unconstitutional in Canada. It's illegal for them to have done it. And this tells me that what's happening is the governance in Canada is not right with the universe. And there's going to be a consequence to this sort of stuff, which, we've got to keep in mind that Canada right now is undergoing the consequence of a person in power who is scared for his life. Because this is the reaction that you get from people who are scared for their life.
He ought to be. He ought to be. I'm gonna interject. Justin Trudeau ought to be scared for his life because he's a despot. Yes. He's a communist little bastard.
Yep.
And I'm glad he's scared for his life, and I'm glad that I'm not happy for Canadians to be suffering. Okay, I love my Canadian friends. However, they do need to learn that lesson, and the entire point of having the Second Amendment was that we had learned as a species that King George's and King Louis and popes are not trustworthy. The divine right to rule is not a trustworthy system. And we have not cleared that from our bloodstream. The Hollywood propagandizes the divine right to rule constantly. Constantly, they are putting out stuff that insinuates the divine right to rule will work. And it won't work. Plato was wrong in this area. And so we've got to get that out of our system. I'm not saying that pure democracy works. That clearly doesn't work because mob rule is a bad idea. However, putting it down to one man to make these kinds of decisions, or one governor in the case of Michigan, or one mayor in the case of Chicago, these are bad ideas. And we have done the philosophical work, and the American philosophy is, as I say, the third greatest philosophy of all time. And it is a rare experiment, but people need to be reminded of what it's for and why did they include a Second Amendment as number 2 right after the right of speech, religion, expression, and gathering for protest.
That was
they included it because there will come a time when a little bastard like Justin Trudeau rears his head, and he ought to be scared for his life. I don't hope he necessarily dies, but he needs to be physically removed. He needs to be physically taken and physically kicked so that his ego is ended. He needs to be physically kicked out of the office. That's what the universe wants. But if that's not what Canadians do, I don't know what to do for them. They're going to have to learn it the hard way.
Well, it doesn't matter really whether the Canadians kick him out or not. The universe will do it anyway. When we come back to the appointment of a ruler, and this has happened, if you look at the Old Testament of the Bible, and I'm sure it exists in other religions, that people were appointed to rule by the divine authority. But that appointment could be rescinded and they could be removed from that appointment by the same process, or the reverse process of being appointed in the first place. So although people think they've been appointed to rule by God or whatever, the simple fact is that you only remain in that office of rulership so long as you are obeying the universe's rules about how you are to do that office, to how you act in that office. And if you don't act in according to the rules, you will be removed by the environment. It will get rid of you. Now, whether that's through a rebellion like occurred in England when Charles I lost his head, or whether it was what happened in France when Louis XVI lost his head, there is at some and in the Americas as well. You know, when George III got thrown out of control of the United States and the colonies, and again in their civil war, you see these events occurring throughout history. And the big problem for a lot of people is they don't learn their history, which means they're doomed to suffer what has occurred in the past. As Winston Churchill said, if we don't learn from history, we're going to repeat it. And unfortunately, it takes horrible events that cause a lot of people suffering for the message to get through. And my eldest son, wrote a book where he had a storyline where the children, through their education, lived the virtual reality of the lives of their ancestors and understood what their ancestors went through in times of war and famine and all the rest of it, so that when the kids came out of their education, they understood what the past meant personally to everybody who experienced it. And maybe we need an education system that does exactly that, and maybe we might have a better society at the end of it. But, you know, we're not going to get rid of these guys. There's no shortage of people that think that they can walk into the bar and beat the crap out of everybody and walk away without a scratch. And the problem with those people is eventually they walk into a bar and there's someone that will hand their ass to them.
Someone like me. Except for God, you know what? Here's the one thing. All I can do is help engineer the society, because God never puts me in those situations. I have begged to be on the plane when the terrorists pull the thing, or be on the train or whatever it is, and they pull the knife. I've wanted to be there, but God doesn't put me in those situations. He puts my assistant in those situations. God love the woman. She goes over to get me a coffee or something from the thing, and some jackhamole, you know, they try to shake her down. So she says, my boss will shoot you in the face or something like that. But, you know, it never happens to me. So all I can do is teach the sciences of survival and self-defense, and I try to engineer and improve society, which is what my research and papers is ultimately about. My products, as I like to call them, my products.
Maybe it's not your job.
I guess. But
the universe is telling
these hands, they want to be put to use.
Fine. The universe is telling you it's not your job. So
yeah, well, I'm ready to be an operator any moment. I'm ready to operate, buddy. Surgically.
Maybe the time will come when these skills that you have developed become important, but at the moment it's not your job. So you know, sit there humbly.
Apparently, instead, and this is where I worship the Lord, but I will tell you, I don't agree with the entire design, because my baby brother is graduating from the United States Marine Corps, hoorah, this coming Friday, just in time for the World War III. I saw someone post a thing that was all about cryptocurrency. Russia and China linked together, creating the new Cold War. I said, well, great, then my book is in time. But me being right means me being also miserable on account of the fact of the subject matter. So,
well, I read a news article this morning that's saying that North Korea is committing cryptocurrency fraud to finance its missile program. You know, is it possible for a state hacking organization to do this stuff? Probably.
Absolutely. If I were put in charge of a program of 100,000 hackers, I'd have the whole world rolled up by now. I'd have all Africa and South America within 10 years. A guy like me, can you imagine the I have a paper that I'm going to be writing that is so dangerous. Not only can I not publish it on academia, I really can't show it to any, not even you guys. And it's because the concepts in it are all spacer and aim related concepts. So I apply the protocol. Now, if there really are 10 of me, based on IQ or even TIQ levels over in China, maybe it's a little less than 10. Then that's a frightening thing. So you put someone like that in charge. That's actually the plot of one of the Tom Clancy books, is that a super, although somebody much more sociopathic, is put in charge of his own hacking unit, and the campus has to take him out. But it's only a matter of time before somebody comes up with similar concepts.
Well, that may well be, but the thing is that that's against the nature of the universe, and it's doomed to fail. So while it might look like it temporarily succeeds, it will fold. So, you know, the fact regardless of whether it's true or not, the North Koreans trying to take control of, commit fraud on cryptocurrency isn't going to get them very far. No more than the people that are trying to start a war between Russia and the United States over the Ukraine, or United States and China over Taiwan, or other areas in Asia. They're trying to establish a war. They've been trying to do it for the last 6 years at least, and so far their efforts have failed. Now, I think they're going to continue to fail because it's not going to be permitted. This sort of war that they're trying to instigate will involve the use of nuclear weapons in the process.
I don't know. I think I'm convinced that their goal is to win the World War 3.0 and the new Cold War before having an actual conventional World War 3, and that the goal is, as the art of war says, to roll it up without a shot fired. I would say that how realistic is the doctrine of unrestricted warfare? I will note, I don't know how realistic it is, but I will note that when the United States military responded, when a Marine wrote a reply, there didn't yet exist smartphones or social media or YouTube. Those things hadn't existed yet. And the thing about YouTube is the double-edged sword. Yeah, I get on and learn all sorts of science, but so do enemies of the republic and of democracy and of Western liberalism and equanimity. They get on and learn all sorts of ways. They could learn how to create a drone that drops thermite. I mean, it's not that hard, folks. I could come up with things like that all day long. The question is, what will God allow? Because I think God, through the ether, right? God is in the center of the big G diagram, and he's in touch with all of the facets of that diagram. And through the ether, through heaven's power, I think that it has the ability to keep things safe. Now, some people say that it's the intelligence community that's kept another 9/11 from happening. Others say, well, the New World Order has just moved on to different false flags. I don't honestly know.
We haven't seen a false flag that we need that was described by the German rocket scientists involved with the Apollo program. We're just trying to remember his name. Von Braun. He's of the events that he described, the only thing left to go is a false flag ET invasion that's staged. It's not ETs. It's actually humans done up in giggle suits. So that is one thing that has yet to occur. But in terms of a war of the sort that we're talking about, a Third World War, if that event is allowed to occur, then nuclear weapons will be used, and it's because it's permitted. Now, up until now, we've had numerous occasions where either a nuclear war has been started and stopped or shut down just before it was going to kick off. And there are, if we look at what's occurred in the last, since 45, you've had the Cuban Missile event, where it was only decades after that went the way the West wanted it that the West discovered that the Cubans had 169 short-range missiles that could hit every 80% of the United States, right? Now, that would have been a disaster for everybody. Ronald Reagan nearly started World War III with an exercise. Boris Yeltsin had 5 minutes to decide whether there was a nuclear attack on Russia and whether he should use his authority to launch a countermeasure. And then you've got these anecdotal statements in the US military command of the silos where their nuclear missiles have all powered up and shut down and done weird things. So, these events have occurred in the past. So I think there have been times in the recent past where we could have had these horrible events unfolded, but they were prevented. And which is a good thing, I suppose, in some respects. But I suspect when there's a time limit on our time to turn to the right things. You know, if we as a global society fail to turn to the right path, then these events will just unfold as a lesson to all of us. And, you know, the people that want to stay right and follow the correct path will be the ones that survive this event. It won't be many, but there will be enough to continue. And this stuff has been predicted for thousands of years. Looks like Ramon's muted his microphone, but anyway. So we'll see what happens. You know, it could be a good thing or it could be a bad thing. It'll be what is. You know, technology is neither good nor evil. It's the purpose through which it's put that makes the difference. It's what we decide to do. Yeah.
Sorry, so I was speaking about the book. So, you know, they were wanting to know how many copies of the book I wanted to have available, and I'm getting them to make it hard copy ready. Of course, this book is not about making money, or that wouldn't be very EP&C of me. This book is about strategy. I have specific targets for this book in mind, and I intend to send those targets this book. Now, you know, I'm not a politically correct person. I'm a polite person, but I'm not a politically correct person. Well, mostly polite. I'm polite to polite people. And so, you know, but it's my hope to end up on, you know, Patrick Bet-David's channel and to speak with him and to speak to, you know, congressmen and senators and try and help the world. I have no idea the degree to which I am censured by the system or the universe. I noticed that today I got, for the I Ching, I got the turning point, but it had some I don't know what you would say, some sharp rebuke for me at the end. Anyways, and the Proverbs was pretty tough on me too over this weekend. So who knows? I have no idea if I will be unblocked. All I could do is just keep working for the betterment of everyone, and maybe one day the noble-hearted will be unblocked. Right now, though, the blockage is extreme. You mentioned that the God or the universe is willing to let us drop bombs on each other. It absolutely is, and I think that people should be aware of how things work. Last night, I watched Taken, and I very much identify with Liam Neeson's character on the account of the people that he. In this case, it's his ex-wife, but it's not just that. It's everybody who thinks that their world is about material and this plastic and cushy existence, and there are real serious evils going on. And he is a character that is able to focus on those things, and obviously in the end, of course, saves his daughter. You know, I am a like mind to that character. However, my range of influence may be curtailed, but so long as I am raising four little Ninas, I have no idea. As for like social media, I'm aware of its power. I'm interested in how, obviously, Joe Rogan's being crushed right now because, you know, he was threatening the mainstream media, so they found a way to crush him. I'm interested in how the system or how the universe allows good people to suffer. I'm interested in that. I don't have a whole lot of information for people other than to tell you that it is totally true that good people can and will suffer. Who and what that benefits, I'll let you read it from the Bible if you want those kinds of answers.
It benefits the person who suffers.
It does, but it doesn't.
Yeah, my father-in-law
there's not a whole lot of benefit to my sister getting cancer. You know, it's just not.
I accept that because my mother's in the same boat. But the thing that my father-in-law said before he died was that you have a choice. You can pay for your misdeeds while you're alive and in suffering, or you can pay for them after you're dead. But one way or the other, you're going to pay for them. So for the message for the audience I have is, accept paying for your misdeeds while you're still alive, because the rewards way outstrip the suffering we suffer. And the minute we die, all that suffering disappears. It's gone for good. So,
that is the conjecture. We think it's true. As a scientist, we can't really say it's for sure true, but my faith is that that's true, and that's why I suffer and endure. But it doesn't make me happy about it. I don't.
It's never pleasant. It was never pleasant to get whacked when I was a kid, and but the thing is, it made me a better person because it happened. And when you take that view that the discipline
I'll be glad to whack you now if you want.
No, it's okay. It's all good. But the thing is, it's important for us to realize that we have to be humble, and sometimes we need to be smacked around for that realization to really sink in. In my case, it was all the savings I'd done for 27 years just disappeared by thievery. You pay the price. The conservative estimate of how much money I've lost in Australian dollars was $32 million. And that's a huge financial whack for anybody. But, I don't feel particularly unhappy about it. And I did save our taxpayers somewhere in the tune of $100 million. And the recognition I got for that was, here's the pink slip, see you later. So, it's these things will occur to us, and you can't get pissed off about it. You can't get
well, you can. It won't do you any good.
Exactly. I mean, there's no point in getting depressed and trying to plot revenge and all the rest of it, because all you do is damage yourself. And we all go through these processes, and when these things occur to us, they're a horrible shock to our system. But for some of us, it's the opening, the opportunity to change our lives and our ways and realize who we really are before the universe, and accept the fact that, we need to do a better job. And that's important for everybody, whether they're, a group that wants to control everybody, or the group that doesn't care, that just wants to get a handout, or the people that are struggling in the middle. But in the end, the people that are prepared to change and do a right life, to live a right life, are the ones who are going to persevere and win, because the other two groups can't succeed, And we have history to tell us that.
Yeah, your faith isn't just faith, right? It's based on the historical data.
Yeah, and some people say, because it wasn't written in a book or chiseled on stone, it didn't really happen. Well, that's a bunch of rubbish, Prove to me, you who claim that sort of stuff, that your parents loved each other enough to keep you to be in existence in the first place, or any of your ancestors were in that boat as well, because, you are the product of those who survived. And if you're going to deny history, well, you might as well deny your own existence, because your parents were a figment of your imagination. And that's clearly goes against the facts that are evident in just you existing. So, the people who want to claim that the past, oral recording of the past, or the memory recording of the past is not real, and they have denied their own existence. They're ignored the evidence, which makes pseudo-scientific. They're believing their nice little fantasy about how the world should be. And they're the type of people who want the magic wand, or the silver bullet, or the genie who can just click their fingers and make their life perfect. Well, that's never, ever going to happen. No matter how many people have wished for these things, they've never received those sorts of advantages. But that's not me. You got your phone next to a printer?
It does happen to be. It does happen to be next to a printer. Lo siento.
I was just saying I'm trying to figure out what the noise was. But anyway, so yeah, the the value of our lives is measured by our contribution. And if we're not going to contribute to the welfare of all, then our contribution is not that valuable.
Yeah, definitely the system is a nonlinear, rewarding form of causality, but there is a reward, and it's an interesting kind of system. Again, I probably wouldn't design it this way, but that's just I'm not in charge. I only work here, people.
It's not your system.
Nope, not my system. And therefore, and the good news about that is then you're not responsible for that. You're not individually responsible for the suffering of all, unless you yourself go and inflict the suffering. But you're not directly responsible for the breakdown of various systems. Now, it'd be great to in some ways everybody wants to be king for a day and switch this or that up. I would say that one of the great things about this cosmology is that now in a single MEMS paper, and a couple of them I've actually copied and pasted the text, we've got like 5 different proofs of God's existence, and we're able to just move forward. And when we're able to move forward with that knowledge, then we can engineer better solutions and then trust and wait for the law of rotation. Because the law of rotation and the law of conservation are constantly at work. They're all at work at all times because they're all one law. But the law of rotation, if we're just patient enough, it does cycle through. That's, I guess, one of the, again, repeating messages of the hexagram I got today of turning point, or the return, number 24, Fu, which is interesting. The bottom one is Jun, which is thunder. Referring to the thunderbolts, and specifically that word actually means the shock, but its etymology is earthquake. And then above is the receptive, earth, meaning another way of looking at this is the law of vibration. If you set your vibration to receive, then at the bottom of it is a yang bar that represents the rotation. So by setting and attuning yourself to the greater source, the greater system, and then being patient enough to wait, it will cycle over and change and turn over. I mean, all food is ripe at only a certain time. Most of the time, it's either in a growing phase, a non-existent phase, or a rotting phase. It's only ripe at the time that it's ripe. And then the rest of the time it's in the compost heap or in the soil, and it's constantly being churned. And this is a very tough lesson for us as people, especially modern consumer materialists, who inherently in our culture, we do believe in a form of perfection that is an idealized state. It's a mistake of our culture, but it's just, it's just the way it is. It's partly the Aristotelian and Descartesian kind of throwbacks, but it's just part of our culture, maybe part of our natures. It's not really something we've done any real research on, and we're still stuck in the archetypal. A funny thing, yesterday, a guy, a conservative on one of the discords who's not in this community, who I've been slowly teaching a little bit here and there, asked me what I thought about Jordan Peterson. I said, well, he's correct because he's 4 ways downstream and he has he's the beneficiary of evidence. But he's informed by Campbell, and Campbell's informed by Jung, and Jung is informed ultimately by the concepts that Velikovsky is going on. Of course, Jung preceded him, but he didn't have a description for why these archetypes work. And now you have Dave Talbot. Dave Talbot is just a more direct descendant of Velikovsky. And so, really the discussions of these archetypes and motifs would get us probably far better results, which I will put a small advertisement in for people to read Dave Talbot's book, The Saturn Theory. and which you can find embedded copies on the gateway, and also to look at my data table that I have, which has the Saturn theory in a single table. So you can find that in the EPMC tables paper if you want to not go through every paper looking for where it is. I don't even remember which paper I put it in. It might have been in the On the Origins of Religions. I don't remember. But if they go to the EPMC tables and graphs paper, it's in there. And it's got the whole Saturn myth, the way that Dave Talbot had done it. And then I have another table somewhere that has the different gods and the weapons of the gods. And so if you combine all those, you have a pretty good idea of where religions came from. And then when I did the Big G consistency letter, I also included some names of the different archetypes, the Lord and God, all from around the world, and the Force and the Aether. And it's in all the cultures. So it doesn't belong to Judeo-Christians only, or to Taoists only. Guys, my client is here. I'm going to have to be rolling, so I'm going to hit the stop recording, and then we'll just wrap it up in general.